Peter, when he goes to Hong Kong, the escalator
has a
stamp. But I tell you the truth, Uvda the Chol is still Uvda the Chol. The question, the same halacha. So this you have a stample. This maybe you don't have a stample. Some elevators in Bnei Brak you don't have any stample or stample on the elevator. In Yerushalayim you do. In Tel Aviv you have even an elevator with a Jew pushing the button. So it depends on the stample. But for me, this subject is a very tough one. I really don't understand it well, and I asked David Zeffren to give an introduction, so to speak, to Uvda the Chol. And David prepared it, and I hope he prepared enough for me to explain why we are allowed or not allowed to exercise on Shabbos. By the way, all the halachas that we learn here, at least what I say, no psak halacha. Everybody understands. There's no psak halacha. I can tell you.
You're talking about exercising for exercise sake, not walking to the other side of town to an offering.
Wait, we're not there yet. Wait.
I will explain that. Actually, I will explain. So let's understand. Right? Exercise on an exercise machine. We'll see. Even an exercise machine. Are we allowed to? We have a Sister Eliezer, big one not, small one yes, Uvda the Chol, not Uvda the Chol. So let's understand what's all about. David, thank you. Okay. I appreciate you helping me on this subject.
Thank you, Tzvika. And I will repeat the disclaimer and tell you that if what he says is certainly not halacha, is not paskan halacha, this absolutely. But I think Mickey already has given the answer as to Tzvika's question as to what the connection is between the elevators and exercise. I know you wrote it to me, but I'm going to say it anyway. Mickey already gave us the answer, and that is that anyone who takes the elevator doesn't exercise, and those who exercise don't take the elevator. So that takes care of the question. So if you knew, trying to figure out what the question was, it's solved. But Tzvika mentioned this concept of Udin the Chol. And we've heard this since we were little kids, that there are things we can and cannot do on Shabbos. It's not Shabbos dik. It's Udin the Chol. It's, whatever. What are the guidelines? What's the gedarim for this? We're going to see that, as Tzvika mentioned, a lot of topics that seem to be very different. In reality, they all have the same geder as to why you can or cannot do them. And that's what Tzvika is going to get to a little bit later. Hopefully this won't take too long. I'll try not to. And I'll try to do this justice. But the few pages that I have here, is just the tip of what we see in halacha and in poskim of the concept of Uvdin the Chol. But I figured let's get started a little bit. Let's go back to the beginning. Where does it really come from? So if you look in Parshas Emor, it's interesting. It's a Parshas of Moadim. And if you look in Pasuk Chav Daled, where it says Daber al Bnei Yisrael, you have this set. Daber al Bnei Yisrael Emor B'Chodesh Shvi B'Echad LaChodesh Yeh Lechem Shabbosom. Right? Zichron Trua, Rosh Hashanah. If you just look at the beginning of the Ramban, we're not going to learn it because it's a very long Ramban, but this is the basis of the Shita of the Ramban. Yeh Lechem Shabbosom Sheyeh Yom Shvisa Lanuach Bo. V'Omer Rabbeinu Shebetoch Esehu. V'Hinei Ha'osam. Shabbaton. I'm sorry. Shabbaton, right. Shabbaton, Esehu. V'Hinei Ha'osam Locha B'Yom Tov over Belav V'Esei. Okay, but you was essays. The Ramban goes very deep into it, and you don't have the whole Ramban. You can look it up, but if you go further in the Ramban here and in other places, but he starts it here by Yom Tov, he extends it to Shabbos. And he says that there's a specific inyan of shvisa on Shabbos, that you can't do things that you would do during Chol on Shabbos. So you have to rest from what you did during the week, actions that you normally take during the week on Shabbos. That seems to be how the Ramban starts, and the Ramban takes it from this pasuk and this word of Shabbos.
Rabbi Shai just made a point of that.
Right, that was the shiur. That was the right. So if you heard Shai's shiur, you understand a piece of that. A piece of that. Then go to the Gemara. So the Gemara in a variety of places. This one, Kufim Gimel Amid Beis. If you look at actually the parak before, and we're going to get to that on the following page. Oh no, actually you're not going to. I actually threw it in there. The parak before this, the parak Tolin, has an entire parak where we discuss all of these issues about doing malacha on Shabbos and how you get around it. It's a fascinating parak. You should learn that parak. It's fascinating to see, and in fact, if you look, the word that even Art Scroll uses in some cases is the word of subterfuge. You figure out ways to get around certain gedarim and halacha so you can do it on Shabbos. An entire parak. We're going to go to this parak, and this is the famous cases that we all learned as kids about the chovish shenishbra. You have a barrel that breaks, the wine is coming out, and how many are you allowed to save it? You're not allowed to save it. You can save enough for 3 sudos. You can call your friends, bring your own cups, fill them up. Also, but you can only take enough for 3 sudos, even though the rest is gonna fall out onto the floor. And the Gemara goes, just forget about the Mishnah, we don't have time to learn it, but the Gemara says, Snalo, Yisfog b'yayin v'lo yitvach b'shemen sh'layas k'derech she'osu b'chol. Why can't you do it? So the Gemara says you can't do it because it's derech chol. This is the way we work during the week. This is how we do work. This is how we fill barrels. This is how we do our regular malacha during the week. Therefore, you can't do it on Shabbos. Even though it's a hefsid, it could be a hefsid meruba. You can't do it because it's the things that we do during the week. You look in Rashi, and this is the basis of Rashi's opinion. Rashi, that first Rashi, V'yitfach or V'yitafach, however you pronounce it, Machnis bo kapo, v'Hashem nidbak bo. What is he talking about, Rashi? If there's oil, it's a barrel of oil. And what do you want to do? You basically stick your hand in the oil. It sticks to your hand. You have oil, right? It's a little bit sticky. And then you sort of let it drip into a cup. You put your hand down. You do the same thing time and time again. Rashi says you don't scoop it up. You dip your hand in, it adheres to your hand, and you let it drip into a cup. Right? Or you rub it against the lip, and it goes off into the kli. Asro mishum uvdin dechol. Rashi gives us a word, a phrase, uvdin dechol. This is work of chol. You can't do it. It's not an isser. He doesn't say it's an isser d'oraisa. We'll see what kind of isser is this. Rashi seems to imply, or the Gemara is telling you, it's usher to do this. What is this category? We're used to categories of lamites malachos, avos malachos, toldos, shvus. This is now another category, it seems, called uvdin dechol. It's usher on Shabbos.
It's equivalent to isser derabonon, to exera derabonon, or it can be more.
Wait, hang on. So what you don't have on page 2A, I'm sorry, I apologize. You don't have it. I'm going to tell it to you. This is in the previous parak. Previous parak talks about where you had wine and you wanted to strain the wine, because remember when they made wine in those days, they had a lot of junk in the wine from the grapes. You used to strain it through cloths usually, so that you could drink the wine. So apparently, it seems that you can't do that on Shabbos because you can't use a strainer. For whichever halacha you want to come up with that applies to it, there may be several, you can't strain it. Okay? So what do? The Gemara tells you, this is what you do. You build a strainer, but it's not a strainer. You build what looks to be a strainer, but it's used to hold a bunch of pomegranates. Once you've made, and what you do is you get these sticks and you create this sort of a sieve, you put a piece of cloth over it, and it covers the rimonim. Once you've done that already, you can pour the wine on it, and the cloth that was designed for the pomegranates collects the junk, and the wine goes through. That's okay, because you didn't use a wine strainer into a bowl.
A true instrument.
It goes into a bowl. Right.
It's a shinui.
It's like a shinui because it wasn't a sieve that was. It wasn't a sieve, but the Gemara says this is how you get around it. 1 second. This is how you get around it. So Rashi over there says that you can't do it. It's mishum uvda dechol. Some say, and we'll see who says this, some say the reason you can't do it is because you built a tent. You built an ohel. That's the isser. It's an ohel because it covers the rimonim. It's like a binyan. You created an ohel. Rashi says it's not an ohel. It's not an ohel. It's uvda dechol. So like Yitzchak said, you can't do it because of Uvda Dechol. Okay, go to page 3. The Rambam, in a variety of places, and if you want, you can go, he has in several places. The Rambam says, Nemar b'Torah tishbos, afilu midvarim she'enam molocha, listen very carefully what he says, afilu midvarim she'enam molocha chayav lishbos behem. Even things that are not a malacha, meaning of the lamites malachos, you can't do them because you have to rest. Shabbos is an Indian of desisting. It's not even rest. We translated it correctly. Shvisa means stop doing it. Doesn't mean to sleep necessarily or to rest. Udvarim harbehen, going to the next page, Udvarim harbehen, she'amru chachamim mishum shvus. So now, the Rambam clouds it a little bit up. The Rambam says this is called a shvus.
Summer shvus.
This is a shvus. Mehen dvorim asurim mipnei shehen domim lemalachos. Why is it asur? Because they're comparable to a malacha that we already have, one of the lamites. Umehen dvorim asurim gezeira. Another term. Shema yavo mehen iser skila. So the shvus is a kind of a gezerah, which came first, a gezerah or a shvus? But it seems it's a serious category that Chachamim came up with.
But it's a derabon.
Huh?
It's a derabon.
In fact, the Rambam, most of us hold shvus is a derabanan. If you know, the Rambam has a klal in many places in Mishnah Torah that when he says shvus derabanan, every derabanan is basically comes under a klal of a diaraisa that you have to listen to Chachamim, and therefore the Rambam, even though it's a shvus is derabanan, it has within it something that's like a diaraisa. Okay, like lo sasur. Okay, but he has several. What is the nafkamina? The nafkamina is if you can come up with reasons that it's maybe you can get around it. If it smacks of a diaraisa, maybe you can't do that. If it's simply a derabanan, you might be able to get around it, like a shvus to shvus. Okay? The question is, what's uvdin dechol? What's uvdin dechol? He doesn't describe it here. He doesn't use that terminology. Okay. So he says it's a gezerah derabanan atu malacha mesuyames. That's basically what it is. If you go to the next page, that's the beginning of Perek Chav. You go further in the Perek, he gives many examples. He says, this is where a basket of fruit falls on the ground, page 5, basket of fruit falls on the ground, can you pick it up? You're not supposed to gather it together, okay? And he says you shouldn't put it into a basket or whatever. He talks about it, because you're doing something like what you do during the week. Because I already defined for you that shvisa means on Shabbos, you're supposed to desist from things you do during the week, therefore you shouldn't do this as well. Not that it's a malacha, but it's something you should stop doing on Shabbos as part of shvisa. So the Rambam says, in his opinion, why is that? Why is uvdin dechol, you shouldn't do it? Because it may bring you to do an actual malacha. Okay?
Melacha d'oraisa.
A melacha d'oraisa. One of the lamites malachas.
So it's always comes with the connotation of melacha.
According to the Rambam so far.
Uvdin dechol.
According to the Rambam so far.
Okay.
Just keep it in mind. This is the Rambam. We got to look at who says what. Okay. You look further on in Perek Chav Daled in the Rambam, Hilchot Shabbos, page 6. Yesh devarim she'en asurim b'Shabbos, afal pi she'enam domim l'malacha, ve'enam mevi'in lidei malacha. Oh, now he adds something else. Before we said an example, it might bring you to malacha. Here he says even things that may not bring you to malacha. Ubnei nemru mishum she'nemar. Now he brings another pasuk. This is a pasuk in Yeshaya. Im toshiv mishabas raglecha asos chavetzecha biyom kodshi v'nemar chabaratu be'asos derachecha mitzol chatzecha v'davar adov. So from here we learn many halachas. The Rambam learns many things. Lefichach aser la'adam lahalech b'chavtzav b'Shabbos. For example, you just want to walk your fields, see what's going on. According to this, you cannot do it.
This is if you want to see what's going on. But
you just want to see.
To walk.
No, but you're walking because you're looking to see. You're surveying your land. Maybe so on Sunday I know what to do. Afilu ledaber behen. Kagon shedaber im shutfo ma yimkor lemachar or ma yikna. So you're not even allowed to talk, because it says, B'daber dover, you're not allowed to talk. You can't even schmooze with your partner. You know, hey, we got an issue tomorrow. You know, okay? Daber dover, okay. Right. The Rambam understood it all. It says, but he says here is mutter. Okay, fine. So again,
it doesn't mean talk business.
Okay, so but the Rambam here is specifically is talking about dibur that's specific to chol.
He says
here is mutter. Okay. It's nothing. We had a discussion whether or not Hirur is Kedibur or not. Well, that's another shir. Okay. The Rambam on page 7, further along, says, I'm sorry. Asru chachom l'talta mixas dvarim b'Shabbos kedersh. So the Rambam brings us down in many different places. And the Nosei Kalim discuss on the Rambam, what does the Rambam mean? Does he mean that this is Shvus? Is this another level? Is it just not Shabbosdik? It's because many of the Nosei Kalim say their understanding of the Rambam means it's just not Shabbosdik. It's just not the right thing to do. It doesn't make feel like Shabbos. Okay. Comes along the Eglei Tal. The Eglei Tal on page 8. So what happens? So we had Rashi, we have the Ramban, we have the Rambam. Okay.
Also, you can't do that.
Okay, and you also have the Ran. We didn't go see it, but the Ran also comments on this, and we're going to see his opinion. But see what the Eglei Tal writes at the end of the long sugya. He's talking about the malacha of Mamer, which was the case brought by the Rambam as well, and the Gemara about subterfuge. Ach yesh makom iyum b'divrei haRamban. So he says that the Ramban equates uvdin dechol to shvus, which puts it on a higher level. It's more serious. It's a shvus. The Ran brings this, and he doesn't say anything. However, uberan sha'al halacha hilchas harif Reish Shabbos gabi redias apas. We're gathering things. Kosav. The shvus chomor me'uvdin dechol. There's now levels. Now we see something new. There's now shvus, and below it is uvdin dechol. So now it's not so chomor anymore. So now you start thinking of the things that I need to do on Shabbos. Maybe I can get around it because uvdin dechol is not the same level as the shvus. Okay. So I found, and again I apologize because I found it I'm sorry? Well, it's a geder. The question is, what is it?
Is it not quite a gzera? The question is whether it's a gzera.
Well, some people call it gzera.
You're accepting that the Rambam right at the beginning made a difference between the two.
That's correct. Obviously, you see that there's a variety of opinions, and it's not so clear who holds what.
I can refrain from all of the lechol and maybe still not achieve shvus because there's more, something more I need.
That's the classic question that you can lock somebody in an empty room and whether or not he's mechal Shabbos just by sitting in the room. Okay, that's a we can have that we can go through that exercise if you want to. But I found today. And I'm sorry I didn't put it in here. There was a sefer written about 30 years ago in Gateshead by Rav Pesach Falk, maybe. I guess it's Falk, not Falk. Falk. Rav Pesach Falk. And he named it Maraza Eliyahu. In there he goes to a lot of interesting shilas, a lot of piskei halacha. And here he has a whole section on Dinei de Uvda Dechol Mutter. Uvda Dechol is Mutter. And he goes to a long arichas in how many ways you can get how you can sort of around uvda dechol.
But under two
it's
circumstances,
it's makom mitzvah. There's a whole long list. So all this hefsid meruba, all the things that we always said that even hefsid meruba, like a barrel of wine, you can't do because of shvus. By uvda dechol, all of a sudden they all start to fall away. He even quotes, which I just saw before. He says there are two, and he now defines two types of uvdin dechol. He says it's not just things. There's an uvdin dechol where you have a chashash that you might come to use two in the malacha, like the Rambam Surah said, or there's an uvdin dechol. That's nothing. That's even not even a malacha. You're not even come close to malacha, which is it's an even lower level. It simply doesn't seem like Shabbos day. Okay.
We said that if the air conditioner is on, it's too loud.
Okay, one second. One second. Hang on, 1 second. So that's Av Shemilsa. That's another issue that we discussed here. The noise. So in here he actually quotes. He quotes here. Let me see. I'm sorry. Let me see if I can find it quickly.
Noise will be a coffee maker.
Oh, so one of the famous.
If it's quiet, then it's okay.
So one of the,
if it's too noisy, do the dish.
Right. One of the earliest questions you see among the poskim was an issue of grating cheese. I guess, especially in Europe and France, all these guys, eating cheese was a big thing. Grating cheese, and it seems that there's a lot of piskei halacha going back, as we'll see, to the time of the Rivosh, going back into the 1300s, where they were concerned about grating cheese. Okay, so he talks about whether or not you can grate cheese with a very fine grater, very fine grater. And he says that he spoke to both, and then he comes up and he says, well, there are other graters that are not so fine.
If you eat
they do slices. That's also, some see you can't even do that. But you take like slices of cheese, it's a little bit different. He says he asked both of Shlomo Zalman and Rabbi Yashuv, and they both said that it was mutter.
Which one?
Not a fine, it's like a slicer, like a fine slice.
While he's doing it.
Why would it not?
No, because we've always been told you're using a cheese slicer. I'm not talking about a knife. A cheese slicer. It's an uvdin dechol. Both Rabbi Yashuv
but a knife wouldn't be.
A knife would not be. Oh, a knife would not be. And
What
we're going to see that in a
happens if you slice
second.
meat with a machine that's running all day long? Are you allowed to? It's often the whole.
Okay, we had this discussion about machines running all day long, the factory running 24 hours, 24/7. Another shear. Let me try. Keep going. Page 9. Page 9 is a classic shaila, and it's the makor that people quote many places. This was the Ben Ish Chai. The Ben Ish Chai was asked a shaila many years ago from Bombay, India, whether or not they could ride a bicycle on Shabbos. I was trying to figure out because I don't know what it says. It was an instrument. It was something called a gari or a jari. So the question is, I don't know if it was a rickshaw. I figured it was a rickshaw. So the rickshaws were created in the end of the 1800s, which could fit that this tshuva was written. This shaila was asked at the end of the 1800s. Bicycles already existed. But a rickshaw came later, and my guess is the question came from Bombay. It was probably had to do with rickshaws.
The rickshaw they had, but what they did is they used the bicycle
with the rickshaw. Now, the original bicycles, if you know anything about it, the original bicycles did not have a crank. You did not pedal. Original bicycles were two wheels with a board in between. You sat on it, and you used your feet. But it allowed you could sit. The next one allowed you to steer. The one after that was a crank.
Skateboard, but you sat on it.
Going downhill is easy. It's uphill.
That's correct. That's correct.
You push it.
Anyway, go to the bottom. He has the shaila of whether or not he can do it on Shabbos. And if you go to the left column on the bottom, Gari, or a jar, I don't know. B'Shabbos, Yom Tov, B'Socha Ir Sheyesh Ba'eruv, the Lekaba Zilzul, Mishum Uvdin Dechol. Now he throws in another word. That's another. That doing an Uvdin Dechol on Shabbos might be a Zilzul Shabbos. Now we have another. We've thrown in something else. Zilzul.
Yeah, but Kevin, why is it?
Okay.
Why is it not considered a Zilzul?
Yeah.
No, because they are Eruv.
No, it's totally Eruv.
The implication being that the Eruv is a question of Zilzul? No, if there's no Eruv?
No. He says you can do it. 1 second. 1 second. Wait 2 minutes. Wait 2 minutes. Wait 1 second. Wait 2 minutes, and you'll see why he made that comment in the current poskim. Wait 2 minutes. So some say that the Kaf HaChaim writes right after the Ben Ish Chai, his son. Kaf HaChaim writes that the Ben Ish Chai retracted. Avad Yosef, in a very long tshuva, says not true. That never happened. That the Ben Ish Chai said this. It is correct. However, I disagree, And Avad Yosef said you cannot ride a bicycle on Shabbos. Okay.
That's a regular bicycle.
A regular bicycle.
This is not a bicycle.
This is not a bicycle.
Oh, Sofer. Okay. Never mind. Okay.
This is not a bicycle.
He was
Okay, but it was the concept was one second. Okay, 1 second. I'll tell you that I heard also the Reuven Feinstein Paskin in a group of people who were asking the question of whether or not they could ride bicycles in the mountains in the summer where they have a big eruv in these big bungalows. Could the kids ride bicycles? And he said absolutely they could ride a bicycle within the eruv.
The kids.
They could. The kids. That's another question. Kids, adults. No.
However, I just want to. I'm not going to say. Rabbi Schlesinger, the chief rabbi of Geneva, says today you can ride the nail.
You can ride a bicycle in an area, within the area, within the area. Okay.
So without the air to you push it.
So articulated. It has the chain.
Let's see.
No. The bike of today. It's not. He's not done. We had the shear about it. I want to explain the.
I don't even want to get into that. That's another discussion. Let's see what we've learned. What is now in Shulchan Aruch? How is this codified in Shulchan Aruch and Mishnah Berurah? So we talked about the grading of cheese. Remember, we have so many different things we're talking about, but they all seem to have the same reason why you can't do it. This thing called uvdin dechol. All these things fall under one category. It's very interesting. So if you look in Shulchan Aruch, also ligra gvina b'Shabbos, you can't grade it. But mari choretz bal pifiyos, meaning that's a grater that's a very fine, the kind of hand graters that we have, those that make it very fine. Shekorin ralo or ralio. So if you look in the Mishnah Berurah on the bottom, Lamed, this is page 10. Shekorin ralio, Beloshan Ashkenaz, probably Yiddish. Ribeisen. A grater, but a very fine grater. Because this was a kli that's designed specifically to grate. It's called it's derechol. But tavlin. He's talking about whether it's grinding up like pepper and stuff.
Any kind of a kli on Shabbat will be asur.
Possibly. Don't say it's. I don't want to categorically say it. But who adin b'kli? Acham yuchad lekach v'im kain. One second. You go see your question before v'im kain. Afilu lecho miyad asur. The Mishnah Berurah says, Pinchas, the Mishnah Berurah says that with this kli, even if you do it right before you eat it, it's asur. But you can chop it with a knife. That's why Hasidim, if you ever watch by Hasidim, when they make eggs on Shabbos, they do it right at the table with a knife and a fork, just before they eat it. Okay, next, yes, I'm sorry.
So on Pesach, how do you make your grain?
With difficulty.
Okay, very difficult. Yeah. So this concept of grating cheese. This concept. One second. We got a lot to do, guys. We're never gonna. This concept of grating cheese and not using a grater or what you can use is based on a rivosh in the 1300s. If anybody would like to read it, I can't read it. I'm sorry, I didn't give it to you. My eyes, I can't read it. Anyway, this rivash, among hundreds of other rivash, is quoted in Shulchan Aruch everywhere. The Magen Avraham, everybody quotes the rivash, and this is all based on the rivash. Go to number 11, a little bit to what Zika might be talking about. Dinei sicha b'Shabbos. Okay, you need a massage?
Give me the grater. What's the status of the grater? Yes or no?
Yeah.
You know what
what can I wait? Okay, so sakin
maybe.
You can basically get a massage. Anoint oil. You can rub oils on you. Not cream. We are in the discussion. Not cream. Oil. Okay. Ayidei shinui. You do it with the shinui. The hainu shasach, umamashmish biyachad, lo yimashmish b'koach. You can't do it b'koach, ela b'refon yadayim. Okay, look at the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah on the bottom, Zion, b'koach. The who uvdin dechol, meaning that giving yourself a hard rub down, a hard massage. That's uvdin dechol. A shiatsu, okay. Ba'ayin lekamen b'sibin, he goes, very
interesting.
Let's again, the Bibir Aloha de la Rambam, Mutter, Kol She'eno Mechavin, Lahevi Atzma Ayidei Zeh, Lidei Zeyo. So the Rambam.
So you can't exercise if you're going to become.
One second, we didn't go through this. We didn't go through this, but if you continue on in the Rambam, in Chav Dal, Chav Hei, Chav Vav, Chav Zayin, Chav Ches, the Rambam goes into a lot of issues of medical issues and whether or not you can do things on Shabbos for medicinal purposes. Okay, and whether if you get this massage or whatever it is for because why? Because it bali de zeya. I don't know what that means. We say it means because you're going to sweat.
Yes.
I don't know what that means.
You're going to expunge from your body.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means. I just throw it out there. We'll see later.
What about the separate issue about
I'll let you go later.
Yeah. You want to go? Okay. So we're going to take a break.
Just
and we're going to go to
for 5 minutes. First of all, I want to ask you a question. Let's understand the term uvdin dechol. Uvdin dechol is an action that I do during the week. I go every day. I walk from here till the freeway. Walk.
exercise.
Am I not allowed to walk on Shabbos? It's uvdin dechol.
As long as it's not the other tchum.
What is the purpose of the walk? That's the question.
Doesn't matter. He's asking.
I'm asking a shaila. Just understand. I walk
What makes it
Because you do it on the weekday.
I do it every day. I walk.
Let's say you didn't do it on the weekday and you only did it on Shabbos.
So maybe it's
then maybe it's not uvdin dechol.
but that's not uvdin dechol.
Yeah, that's
But I do it every. I'm not allowed to walk. Rav Uziel, the chief rabbi at the time of Rav Herzog, he was the counter. He was the Sephardi rabbi. And he asked the shaila, I don't understand the gzeira of uvdin dechol.
What does it mean?
That's number one. Number two, I want you to remember one thing. Reb Shlomo Zalman, Rav Ovadia says one thing about gzeres. And uvdin dechol is a sort of gzeira. Because Shavuos is also gzeira. It's the Rabbonon, it's a gzeira. We are not allowed to add gzeres. Whatever Chazal did, if the Rambam quotes a Gemara, the Gemara, Perek HaChavis, Perek HaTolin, whatever the Gemara say, it's a gzeira. Boom, we accept Torah Sheba'al Peh, so we supposedly accept it. But to make new gzeres, the question, we don't have an authority. So the question is, I'm going to ask. I throw the question to the table right now. Rav Peolim said, and that's what Rav Schlesinger said to Rav Peolim. Rav Peolim said you're allowed to take a bike. Let's assume Gari is a bike, a sort of a bike, a rickshaw, a bike. It's a bike. A bike was not on at the time of the Gemara.
How could it be a gzeira?
How can you make a gzeira? Says Rav Schlesinger on a bike. I want you to remember that concept further. Rav Shlomo Zalman said, a watch that I have a computer, or the David Hager puts on this watch. That's a cheap watch.
Apple Watch? No. Casio.
Casio watch. Oh, you're not allowed to have a computer. It's counter. I says, what do you do? You can make the gzeira. Shlomo Zalman says on that watch, because the gzeira, you decide it's a gzeira. It's not Shabbos dik. You can call it not Shabbos dik. Now I have to be very careful what I repeat.
Unless someone determined that maybe there's a din mukt. He did mukt.
I don't know, but that's all very Surim. It's not uvdin dechol.
Just because it didn't exist, electricity didn't exist at the time. So they have to analyze.
Okay.
Then you're saying, thank you very much. Then you're saying there's an actual issue.
We'll go to an
but then you're saying there's an issur.
You can analyze various new technology and see where it fits in.
But
it's not a new
if you look for gzeres, if you look for isurim, no problem. I can analyze. I can tell you right now that you can walk out of your house on Shabbos because our cannot analyze. Cannot. If you look for them, definitely you'll find it. You are not too, in my opinion, and again, my humble opinion, and it's not psak halacha, I repeat it. We cannot just make zeres because, it's pasnish. Pasnish is pasnish. But it's not uvdin dechol issue. It's not the gzera.
Gzera is a mere label. Gzera is a label. If I'm finding a prohibition of this conduct in an isser, in a malacha, That's
Yeah, but what if you're not? The problem is something that you're not.
So
But
you're
it's the other way. It's when you don't find the
You don't find the issue. You
And
say
then you say it's Isser, and
Uvd in the Chol because you don't have the issue. You don't have it. If you have an issue,
Are you saying that if Chazal called something Uvd in the Chol, that's where we have to stop, but we can't add other things to Uvd in the Chol?
Right, the Uvd in the Chol.
They did call some things Uvd in the Chol.
I agree with you 100% if there is an issue, but I'm not. You cannot make out of it from Uvd in the Chol, say that's the issue, and continue to make everything is Uvd in the Chol.
Strict constitutionalists will say only what's in the Constitution. If you add a new thing, it doesn't. No, Tzvi, the new people, the new Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch. These are scalia. They were strict constitutionalists. Means abortion was never discussed in the Constitution. So it's not relevant, and the Constitution can't say anything about it. So what you want to say is, when Chazal mentioned something and called it Uvd in the Chol, that's what we live with. But new things, we don't have to throw them into Uvd in the Chol. That's what you're.
We do. For instance,
saying, how can you?
The Chazal said, the Mechaber, Shulchan Aruch says, for instance, if somebody makes noise, we talked about noise, we will talk about together. Noise. If you make noise, the machine makes noise, you're not allowed to use that machine on Shabbos. Who said that? I'm sorry, the Mechaber does not say. The Mechaber says you are allowed to use it. Comes the Ramo and says you shouldn't use it because it makes noise. However, in Efsad Merubeh, you can use it. So again, I'll repeat effectively that.
What is that fixed noise?
Like a dishwasher Friday night. You answer because of noise.
Electric clock that turns the radio off.
I know somebody who owns a factory in Israel, and the founder Rav Elyoshi found the ether to have the machine
going full time.
Or put it different. Machine produces oil for food. Machines have to work 24 hours a day. If they don't work 24 hours a day,
I know them as well.
Those machines, if they stop, they have to stop Friday early in the morning, and they have to start only. It takes 2 days to turn on the machine. So the company is losing money every week. Every week they're losing money because, so to speak, 1/7 of the machine is not working. So they went to Rav Elyoshi and asked Rav Elyoshi, let's do something. The factory is in Haifa, and next to the port, no people live around. Let's have a goy sitting at the factory, just to make sure that the machines are working on and there's no fire, God forbid. No Jews are working the machine are automatic.
Yeah, but we want to shut them down.
Rav Elyoshi gave a ether, Rav Alperin gave a ether to it, to the factory, whatever, Rav Efrati gave a ether. A week, 2 days later, big plakaten in Yerushalayim. Rav Efrati is a learning camp in Yavne, he doesn't know anything. And you remember that? Okay. Okay. Why? Because the machine, Badat said there is no way we will allow it. Why didn't they allow it? It's kosher, 100%. Let's assume it makes noise. Nobody hears the noise, so there's no problem for noise. Sephardim definitely can use it. The owner of the factory are the owners are frum. So the Badat said to the guy, those guys, yes, you are frum, but if we will allow you to do it,
everybody else will.
Somebody who is not frum are going to do the same thing. Anyway, that's Afshar de Milta. Afshar de Milta, the Sephardim don't care. Rav Ovadia Yosef gave the Echsher too. By the way, it's not only Rav Elyoshi. Rav Ovadia Yosef gave the Echsher. He was laughing. You Ashkenazim have a problem. That's how I got to be friendly with Rav Ovadia Yosef, by the way. That's how it started. And the Ramos said yes, they didn't allow to. But Afshar de Milta, there is at least in the Ramo it says makes noise, you're not allowed to. We'll talk about this hopefully next week. Uvd in the Chol, the definition of Uvd in the Chol is a problem. I look at it as a problem. It's Ma'aseh Chol. Anything you do is Ma'aseh Chol. So you do it a little bit differently. Why? What is Uvd in the Chol? Wait. I want to go back to Zeh. I want to go the exercise. So just please take the packet. I want to show you something because I'm going to add Chilutz Hatzomos, yeah. When we say Chaim Shel Chilutz Hatzomos, we say it every month. Last week, we benched Rosh Chodesh. What is Chilutz Hatzomos? I got it from Rabbi Krauss, by the way. Rabbi Krauss said Chilutz Hatzomos means exercise. You have to have exercise, not Chilutz Hatzomos. Then he brings it actually from Rabbi Yaakov Emdim. But that's not what I want to show you. Why you are not allowed to? Turn to page number 3 on that package. I'll go back and finish and let you speak, David.
No, keep going.
Page number 3.
Page number 3. Chilutz Hatzomos.
The third exercise.
Says the Rashi. Says, Aval lo mitamlin. Lo mitamlin, you're not allowed to exercise. You guys have it?
Where are you?
Page 3.
Number
3.
Says,
Page 3.
Page 3.
I
mentioned this.
Yeah, down the bottom, in the middle.
Hit'amlut.
That's what it says. So it says, look at Rashi. Lo mitamlin. David quoted before, to the right, L'shafshef bekoach. Why? The Ave Uvda Dechol. Rashi already uses the term Uvda Dechol. However, if you look at the Rambam...
Now, by the way, Midgararim is they would take a knife, like a blade, and they would scrape your sweat off.
Right. Okay.
That's that action.
Okay, but it's still the same halakha. That's the next one. I don't want to talk about Midgararim. Comes the Rambam, if you read it, Ve'en misamlim b'Shabbos, איזה מסמל? זה שדורסים על גופו בכוח, somebody walks on him, עד שיגע ויזיע. או שיהלך עד שיגע ויזיע. שעושו ליגת עצמו כדי שיזיע בשבש, why? מפני שהיא רפואה. It's a issue of רפואה.
No, exercise to sweat.
But the sweating is the problem.
No, because you're expelling.
You want to get rid of all the bad stuff.
It's not the issue of the Dechol. It's not exactly.
I'm not saying Uvda Dechol. He said it's a refuah.
It's a refuah.
Not Uvda Dechol.
Nothing to do with it, right?
That's what it looks like.
And the Shulchan Aruch, okay, the Rambam brings all of it. I want to go further.
What's the problem with refuah? What's the problem with
Shriga Simon, you're not allowed to in a second. That's why you're not allowed to. However, and therefore, I want to go. Comes Reb Shlomo Zalman, page number 6. And Lisamel b'Shabbos u'b'Yom Tov. You guys have it?
Yep.
Yeah?
Six.
And then, a footnote, Kuf Zayin,
physiotherapy, physical therapy, that's like exercise.
משחקי ריצה, קפיצה, תופס ואנחנו מותר, ילד, להתעמל אסור, אוקיי? And then he says down, you're not allowed to exercise. Wait, let me finish. Look at the footnote, Kuvav, shoot melamed le'oil, he brings Rab David Tzvi Hoffman, ואם נהנה מן ההתעמלות עצמה, יש לומר דשרי. However, if you enjoy the exercise, you are allowed to.
Because you're having a good time.
Wait, שמעתי מרב שלמה זלמן אוירבך. הוא wrote it. Shmira Shabbos Kirchos. Okay, all of a sudden, exercise. So it's all relative. That's all I want to know. Rashi tells you, Uvda Dechol. No, Uvda Dechol. He says Refuah. So I didn't understand too well. I went to page number 11C. And I met with Dr. Alevi, the head of Sharet Tzedek. Page number 11C.
3A,
I want to get to
C. That's the other packet.
C here, the other packet.
The second packet, the little one.
in the second packet. Yeah, I'm sorry.
11A.
Second packet or the third packet.
You have it? Here. Okay. All right. I want to read it. I met with Dr. Alevi, the head of Sharet Tzedek. He's a doctor, and I told him at that time I prepared the shiur on sweat, on exercise. You're not allowed to exercise. You're allowed to exercise. What do you know about it? He's not a rabbi. But he knows.
Knowledgeable. He's very knowledgeable.
So he writes to me today, תודה על הפגישה, היום צבי. בהתאם לנאמר בינינו, as we spoke, הריני לאשר, I want to confirm, שהזיעה אינה הזעת יתר, ומופיעה בעת מאמץ גופני, when you do sweat, Rabbi, doctor, I want to hear from you, אינה תופעה חולנית, it's nothing to do with רפואה, אלא מנגנון, and I don't understand what it exactly means, פיזיולוגי לשימור חום הגוף ברמתו התקינה.
Sweating thermoregulates our body. When it sweats, it lowers it. Right. But the Rambam was in an era in the Middle Ages whereby they felt that sweating got rid of poisons. We don't accept that anymore.
Oh.
So just like the Rambam didn't accept medicinal things from the Gemara 1,000 years before him, we don't accept the fact that he said refuah. The Rambam wouldn't be upset with us. The technology, science has changed. So that's the way it is. He was a great doctor.
So hold on. So now let's go back.
But he didn't understand circulation. There was no William Harvey. There was no oxygen. There was a lot of things.
So in essence, what are you telling me, Ernie?
No,
I appreciate
so
you telling me it's a doctor.
that sweating was refuah. It's not regular sweating. It's not refuah. It's part of normal physiology.
According to the Rambam, would you allowed to exercise? Would you be able to exercise?
It wouldn't be considered refuah the way the Rambam understood it.
According to the Rambam,
unless the Rambam meant putting somebody in a sweat box and sweating because for some reason that person needed some kind of
they didn't have a sweat box at the time.
Well, they had no, but
let's understand. I want to understand. Do we see? I know that you disagree with me in a second, but it's okay. With me, you can. Again, let's understand. According to Rashi, it doesn't make any difference if you are sweating, you're not sweating. According to Rashi, what Uvda the Chol, I don't understand what it is, and I'm repeating. I don't understand. According to the Rambam, would you today, if you understand already what sweat is all about, let's assume we understand, let's assume Dr. Alevi is correct, just assumption, he's correct. If he's correct, the Rambam probably would as a doctor, he probably would have accepted the halacha of doctors' theory. According to the Rambam, right now, would you be able to exercise?
Yeah, sweating would not.
No, that's all what I want to get to. So, now you can ask me the question.
We had the Rambam, which really had three levels of Gzer D'Rabbanan. We had those D'Rabbanan, which were Gzer Yimaikum to do malacha, right? And then we had the Gzer D'Rabbanan.
No, if you're febrile, if you have a sickness.
Ernie, we have to control it here.
There was a lower level of Gzer D'Rabbanan, which was Medivrei Sofrim, the Din of Dabru Davar. Now, Uvda the Chol was clearly defined as Dabru Davar. The Rambam clearly states that it's a homer from the pasuk of Dabru Davar, so it clearly falls into that category. Refuah, however, is a Gzeira of Schika Samanim. So that would be a higher level,
a different level altogether,
than is Uvda the Chol. So the mere fact that the Rambam doesn't mention anything about Uvda the Chol doesn't prove that he would say, he wouldn't hold that it's not Uvda the Chol. He has a higher reason, he has a better reason.
I'm sorry. Look at, I love what you say, but I have to stop you right there. Turn back to page number 3, and the Sri De'esh, Rabbi Yechiel Weinberg, he says, I'm not sure, Siman Lamed, that's all I want to read. It tells you that Lefi Dati says now the Sri De'esh, right? Talui ze b'machloket Rashi ברמב"ם בפירוש של אין מתעמלים. דלרש"י אוסרו לשבשב בכוח והטעם הוא משום עובדא דחול, וכמו שאוסרו לרוץ בשבס כמבואר בסימן שמע א', כמו שאסור לגרד בכלי, ולרמב"ם רק אם כוונוסו להזיע משום רפואה. Is that what he says here?
That's true.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Don't make zeros that he meant all of a sudden he agrees with Rashi. He does not agree with Rashi, clearly.
Right.
I mean, he means the Rambam. The way see the echelons, and it doesn't make any sense also. The Refuah and the whole Rambam, you say, Mishum the whole, Mishum Refuah, because Refuah is also doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't make sense. He asked the question, what is Refuah? Shrikas in the morning. Shrikas in the morning, what is that? It's not Kadurim, it's not tablets with the shchikasim on it. But at the time we said Xera, I accept, because it was then, but you cannot add Uvda the Chol too. Anything is Uvda the Chol. Arav Uziel is so correct, Arav Uziel who says Uvda the Chol, it's endless. Uvda the Chol, stay home, do nothing. Don't go to, I'm going to shul every week, one way. I'm not allowed to go to shul the same way. Uvda the Chol? Can't say that, I think. I just wanted to understand, and I really don't understand, because next week I'm going to speak about the Google car, the driverless car, and people will tell me, Rabbi Shavai says, you are allowed to do everything. That's what he told me. But, Uvda the Chol. Uvda the Chol, because people, Marisain, he said himself, Marisain does not exist anymore if so many people are changed. Don't do the same thing anymore. Marisain, it was 500 years ago, what you did in Poland, in the little town, was Marisain. Today, everybody does certain things. I know at the time when we started the Eruv, we're not allowed to carry because people will think we're carrying. It's not, this Eruv today. What do you mean? It's Marisain. Marisain doesn't apply. The same Uvda the Chol does not exist in certain areas. What's written in the Gemara, I can't say anything. But afterwards, what's wrong? Go ahead, David. I'm sorry, I just want to bring the Zeh. Now I let you do it.
Does Shabbos exist? You say of the
Sure it exists. Shabbos exists. Shabbos is something else.
Shabbos is a different category. Shabbos is a higher category.
Like carrying the shofar or lulav on Shabbos is Shabbos. Ain't Shabbos b'mikdash.
No, Shulchan Aruch tells you what a Shabbos is.
I tell you again, what's written in the Gemara, I have to be very careful. This is dangerous.
Jerry, I'll give you a classic example. Right. A shofar on Shabbos because you can't carry it, because you might come to play it, you might come to fix it. Those that's a Shabbos. That's not Uvda the Chol.
He already said
that's a Shabbos.
That's a Shabbos. You can run, you can play tag, mutter likvotz b'chevel, aval l'tameh, like go to a gym and work out. See, so they made a get. There's some getter that they're struggling with. What is Uvda the Chol, what is not?
I don't know.
He's asking.
I asked him,
what is the definition?
But you see, they're making a get.
Trying to make a to be on a machine, a heavy machine, you're not allowed. A light machine, you're allowed.
You mean if the machine was going automatically?
No, he's saying if it's hard work, you're not allowed to.
I mean, I don't understand. I have to say I don't know. I'm embarrassed to say I don't know. I'm not embarrassed to say. Anyway, I really don't know. You understand? Shabbos is something else. Whatever is written, Jens is something else. Jens means at the time. Go ahead.
Okay. We'll switch back. First packet, page 12. Packet with the packet that has the parsha in the beginning. Okay, page 12. This is the Shulchan Aruch Rav. I didn't quote the other Shulchan Aruch because Tzvika did that one. So Shulchan Aruch says, page 12 is the Shulchan Aruch Rav. Mutter l'asach l'mashrish, just like Shulchan Aruch. Biyad al kol aguf lahana, kavad sheyishna midera chol, as long as you do something different than what you do during the week. The hainu sheyomuk b'yivish mashrish b'yachad, below yimashrish b'koach, like we learned before. Then he says, "Ve'ein megardim b'kli." You can't scratch or scrape with a kli that was designed for that. But now he throws in something new. The second line in Gimel, "Ve'im hayulo megredes miuchedes l'Shabbos mutter." So the act of scraping yourself is not the isser, because if it's the kli, that's a kli of the chol. So if you create a kli that's of Shabbos, you can use it. That's what he writes. Okay, what? And I was going to quote and I was going to quote the mediation.
The cheese grater.
I'm going to get another issue because when you do it too fine, then it becomes a malacha. Possibly then it becomes a malacha. That's a different issue. It's not because of it's not
according to you, you're not.
That's what he's saying.
If you eat it right away,
if you want small, with it correct. Many people hold like that. Many people hold like that. Yeah. Okay, page 13. Page 13 is the Tzitz Eliezer. The Tzitz Eliezer goes back, and we're getting to modern times, he talks about a bicycle, but the Tzitz Eliezer says there's 3 reasons not to use a bicycle, right? And if you look in the Chav Zayin, he says 3 things. Aleph, Gezeira shema yotzel chutz tchum, because you might drive outside the tchum.
But you don't have a problem.
Beis mishum uvdin dechol.
Why is it uvdin dechol?
Whatever.
Yesh b'zeh.
Yesh b'zeh esay shel Torah. Shvisa.
Okay.
And Gimel nosaf b'zeh yesh b'zeh gam gezeira shel shema yitokin mana, like Jerry wanted to say before.
No, of course, in case you have to fix it.
The chain comes off all the time. You might want to fix it. So many other poskim say very nice, but we're not worried today. We're not really worried about tchum, and probably not worried about fixing it. Maybe uvdin dechol.
No, fixing it because it may not break. The only thing that happens is the chain will come off, and that's ticking over.
Okay, fine. So it goes into, anyway, there's a lot of discussion on this Tzitz Eliezer, and it goes to what Svika said before. If it's not in Shas, and you're coming up with something new, what is this new thing we're coming up with? It's Uvdin Dechol. But maybe Uvdin Dechol is, you can get around Uvdin Dechol. Rav Ruvain said that if kids riding up, not a tricycle, a tricycle is a toy.
He says it's Shvisa.
Right, he says it's Shvisa. Others disagree with him. I'm just showing you. The Minchas Yitzchak.
So my bicycle is better than tricycle.
No, a tricycle is probably better like a kid's because it's a toy. Toy is a different gather than an adult riding a bicycle.
But no, except he's asking the question, what happens if you have the large ones? You have the ones that are used by adults.
Okay, no, right. Okay, page 14. Page 14 of Minchas Yitzchak discusses the case of a carpet sweeper, not electric. That's another discussion. The old style when you used to sweep them, right? And carpet sweeper. Remember how people said you can't take the ones on the tablecloths, the ones that have the wheels? You can't use that either. He says, yes, you can. So anyway, and he says, he says he's not sure, whatever, but he says might be uvdin dechol v'zilusa de Shabbos. Again, he throws in it's a zilzul of Shabbos. Well, what does that mean? How does that define?
Yes, not Shabbos.
Okay, next is Shabbos. Okay, 1 minute.
That's it.
Okay, next is Igros Moshe. The Igros Moshe also talks about grinding and tochein, and Rav Moshe talks about turning on a water wheel. And he says turning on a water wheel is no problem. You're not doing anything with it. It's just running and going. Perhaps even like electricity. Okay, I'm just throwing it out there. Save it for a future shear. Okay, put that away. Put that in your pocket. We'll use it another shear. Okay, Micha Shlomo talks about it as well. Same sort of thing as Rav Moshe. The Rivas Ephraim, he says you can't move furniture around. He says goes the other direction. The Sadeh Rehitim. Why? What's halacha? What's the malacha?
Which malacha? When?
The Sadeh. Come on. The Sadeh Rehitim lahazizim imakam imakam b'Shabbos asar mishum uvda dechol.
By the way,
not exercise.
By the way, you're doing malacha when you're moving.
Right.
You're doing malacha.
I understand. Okay, fine. I understand, but I'm just saying. But he's, since the Rambam's time, a lot of the poskim go in the other direction. The Greenblatt, interestingly, is just quoting the Rambam. He's quoting the Rambam. Shmir Shabbos. Speaking talked about Shmir Shabbos. There's a lot of examples of Shmir Shabbos. I want to get to page 20 and 21. So we get to this. We get to modern times, and you can buy the Shabbos toothbrush. What's the Shabbos toothbrush? Read the advertising. There are 4 malachos. Look how they write it. 4 malachos involved with brushing your teeth. Schita, Chavola, Mamarech, and Uvdin Dechol. 4 malachos. Uvdin Dechol.
Which is the Uvdin Dechol?
Okay, 1 second.
No, it's a 4.
What do you mean?
Or because we brush our teeth during the week?
I'm just saying this is the advertising with all the Piskala, everybody who writes. Okay? 1 second. Let me finish. Last but not least. Wait. Look at the second page. So it says we get around all of the malachos, and finally Uvdin Dechol. Shabbos toothbrush was designed specifically for Shabbos and not for weekday use. Therefore, it eliminates Uvdin Dechol.
In other words, if I have a Shabbosdik bicycle, I'm allowed to use it.
Correct.
Shabbosdik car.
So, just to summarize.
Tzika, I only use the Google car on Shabbos.
Right. Here you go. Just to summarize, Uvdin Dechol as a category.
The rest of the week you're going to walk.
Uvdin Dechol is the category, aside from exercising, that covers everything. You can't play chess. You might be in that. You can't turn on the lights. You can play chess. 1 second. But some people say you can't. Why? Uvdin Dechol. air conditioners.
If you only play
I'm just saying how people use it. Playing ping pong, riding a bicycle, using an egg slicer, using an hourglass perhaps, oiling a squeaky. You have a hinge that's oiling. What's wrong with putting a squeaky? No, it's not.
That's chicken mana.
Some say it's tigamana. Some say it's tigamana. Others say it's not. No, not about closing. Squeaking.
You're taking away the afshemil.
Anyway, also last but not least, can you use a plunger? Your toilet gets stuck.
That's
you just
you can use the toilet at all. I have a friend of mine.
Who won't use the toilet?
I don't know. David, it only happens on Shabbos.